The wine glass slipped from Celeste's trembling fingers, shattering against the marble floor of Romano's, the city's most exclusive restaurant. The three men in expensive suits had just humiliated her in front of the entire dining room, calling her worthless trash, and demanding she clean up their mess on her hands and knees. What they didn't know was that Leonardo Torino, the most feared Mafia boss in New York City, was sitting just 3 tables away, watching everything unfold. His dark eyes had been following Celeste's every move since she started working at Romano's 6 months ago, though she had no idea who he really was. As the men laughed and one of them grabbed Celeste's wrist roughly, demanding she apologize for being clumsy, Leonardo's jaw tightened. His hand slowly moved to his jacket where his men knew he kept his gun. The entire restaurant held its breath. Everyone except Celeste knew who Leonardo was. Everyone except those 3 men understood they had just made the biggest mistake of their lives. Would Leonardo reveal his connection to the innocent waitress? And why was the city's most dangerous man so protective of a woman who didn't even know his real name? If you want to discover how this intense story unfolds, join our community of story lovers. We're working toward reaching 5,000 subscribers, and your support means everything to us. Hit that subscribe button and let us know in the comments where you're listening from. Now let's dive into Celeste's story. 6 months earlier, Celeste Martinez was running late for her 3rd job interview that week. The heel of her worn-out shoe had broken 2 blocks from Romano's, forcing her to limp the rest of the way, while trying to maintain what little dignity she had left. She was a single mother working 2 jobs just to keep food on the table for her 5-year-old daughter, Sophia. The medical bills from Sophia's recent pneumonia had drained her savings, and she desperately needed this 3rd job to avoid eviction. Romano's was unlike any place she'd ever stepped foot in. Crystal chandeliers hung from hand-painted ceilings, and the clientele wore clothes that probably cost more than her annual rent. She felt completely out of place in her best dress, a simple black outfit she'd bought second-hand 3 years ago. "So you must be Celeste," said Maria, the head waitress, looking her up and down with obvious disapproval. "Mr. Romano is taking a big risk hiring someone without fine dining experience." As Maria led her through the restaurant, explaining the rules and procedures, Celeste noticed a man sitting alone at table 12. He was devastatingly handsome, probably in his mid-30s, with dark hair perfectly styled and a tailored black suit that screamed wealth and power. But it wasn't his looks that caught her attention. It was the way everyone in the restaurant seemed to move around him, like he was surrounded by an invisible force field. The waiters approached his table with nervous respect. Other diners glanced his way and quickly looked away. Even the manager, Mr. Romano himself, had personally greeted the man with what looked like genuine fear, masked as respect. "Who is he?" Celeste whispered to Maria. "That's Mr. Leo," Maria replied in hushed tones. "He owns several businesses in the city. Very important man, very private. He always sits at table 12, orders the same thing, and no one bothers him unless he asks for something." What Maria didn't tell her was that Leo was actually Leonardo Torino, heir to the Torino crime family and the most feared man in New York's underworld. To the restaurant staff, he was just a wealthy, mysterious businessman who commanded unusual respect. During her first week, Celeste worked hard to prove herself worthy of Romano's standards. She studied the wine list during her breaks, practiced pronunciations of Italian dishes, and arrived 30 minutes early every shift. She couldn't afford to lose this job. It was during her 2nd week that the first strange thing happened. Celeste had been assigned to serve table 12 while the regular waitress was sick. Her hands shook slightly as she approached Leonardo with the wine list, intimidated by his commanding presence. "Good evening, sir. My name is Celeste, and I'll be serving you tonight. Would you like to start with our wine selection?" Leonardo looked up from his phone and their eyes met for the first time. Something shifted in his dark gaze, a softness that seemed completely at odds with the dangerous aura everyone else seemed to sense around him. "What would you recommend?" he asked, his voice deep and unexpectedly gentle. Celeste was surprised by the question. Most customers at Romano's knew exactly what they wanted and didn't ask for suggestions from the waitstaff. "Well, if you're having the osso buco, I'd suggest the Barolo from Piedmont. It complements the richness of the dish beautifully." Leonardo raised an eyebrow, clearly impressed by her knowledge. "You know Italian wines." "I studied them during my breaks," she admitted, feeling heat rise to her cheeks. "I wanted to do a good job here." "Bring me the Barolo," he said. but his eyes remained on her face. "And Celeste, you're already doing a good job." That simple compliment meant more to her than he could possibly know. For the first time in months, someone had seen her efforts and acknowledged them. Over the following weeks, whenever Leonardo dined at Romano's, he specifically requested Celeste as his waitress. Their interactions were brief, but always courteous. He learned she was studying to become a nurse, that she had a young daughter, and that she worked multiple jobs to make ends meet. What Celeste didn't know was that Leonardo had already run a complete background check on her within hours of their first meeting. He knew about her struggles, her ex-husband who had abandoned her and Sophia, her mounting debt, and her determination to build a better life for her daughter. He also didn't know why he cared so much about the fate of one struggling waitress. It was on a particularly busy Friday night that Leonardo witnessed something that changed everything. He was having dinner with his consigliere, Vincent, discussing legitimate business, when he noticed a commotion at table 7. 3 men in expensive suits, clearly wealthy but lacking class, were complaining loudly about their service. Celeste approached their table with professional politeness, trying to address their concerns. "The wine is warm," one of them snapped. "How hard is it to serve wine at the proper temperature?" "I'm so sorry, sir. Let me bring you a new bottle immediately," Celeste replied calmly, though Leonardo could see the tension in her shoulders. "And make it quick this time," another man added rudely. "We're not paying Romano's prices for amateur service." Leonardo's hand tightened around his wine glass as he watched Celeste hurry away to fix their order. Vincent noticed his boss's change in demeanor. "Everything all right, Leo?" "Just watching," Leonardo replied quietly, his eyes never leaving Celeste. When she returned with the new wine bottle, one of the men accidentally knocked his water glass into her path. Celeste had to quickly step aside to avoid it, but in doing so, she bumped into a passing waiter carrying a tray of appetizers. The crash was inevitable. The entire restaurant turned to watch, as plates scattered across the floor, and Celeste fell to her knees, frantically trying to clean up the mess while apologizing profusely. "Now look what you've done," the man who had knocked over his water glass said loudly. "Clumsy and incompetent." Leonardo was halfway to standing when he saw the tears in Celeste's eyes that she was desperately trying to hide. That's when he made a decision that would change both their lives forever. "Stay right there," Leonardo said quietly to Vincent, his voice carrying a deadly calm that his consigliere immediately recognized. It was the same tone Leonardo used right before someone disappeared permanently. But instead of approaching table 7 directly, Leonardo did something unexpected. He walked over to where Celeste was still cleaning up the mess on the floor and knelt down beside her. "Let me help you," he said softly, starting to pick up pieces of broken china. Celeste looked up in shock. "Oh no, Mr. Leo, please don't. This is my mess. I can handle it." "I know you can," he replied, continuing to help her despite the stares from everyone in the restaurant. "But you don't have to handle everything alone." The 3 men at table 7 watched this interaction with growing unease. They had noticed other diners looking between them and the mysterious man in the expensive suit, and the expressions on people's faces were starting to worry them. Mr. Romano himself appeared, wringing his hands nervously. "Mr. Torino, please let my staff handle this. There's no need for you to—" "There's every need," Leonardo interrupted, his eyes still on Celeste as they finished cleaning up together. He stood and offered her his hand to help her up. "When my waitress is disrespected in my presence, it becomes my concern." The words, "my waitress," sent a chill through the restaurant. Everyone understood the implication except Celeste, who was simply grateful for his kindness. "Thank you," she whispered, accepting his hand. The moment their skin touched, she felt an electric jolt that seemed to surprise them both. Leonardo didn't release her hand immediately. Instead, he looked directly into her eyes and said clearly, so the entire restaurant could hear, "Anyone who has a problem with Celeste's service can discuss it with me personally." The 3 men at table 7 suddenly found their appetites diminished. "We should probably go," one of them muttered, starting to stand. "Sit down." Leonardo's voice cut through the restaurant like a blade. It wasn't loud, but it carried absolute authority. "You haven't finished your meal." Celeste felt the tension in the air but didn't understand its source. All she knew was that Mr. Leo was protecting her, and for the first time in years, she felt truly safe. "Mr. Leo, you don't have to—" she began. "Please call me Leonardo," he said, his voice gentle again as he spoke to her. "And yes, I do have to. Some things are non-negotiable." Over the next few weeks, subtle changes began happening in Celeste's life that she couldn't quite explain. The manager who had been threatening eviction suddenly became accommodating, offering her a payment plan. The mechanic who had been holding her car hostage for unpaid repairs mysteriously decided to let her pay in installments. Most importantly, her treatment at Romano's improved dramatically. Other staff members began treating her with newfound respect, and difficult customers seemed to magically behave themselves when she served them. What Celeste didn't know was that Leonardo had quietly taken care of several of her pressing debts and had a word with anyone who had been making her life difficult. He was careful to do it in ways that couldn't be traced back to him, wanting to protect her pride. The change in her circumstances allowed Celeste to focus more on her nursing studies and spend quality time with Sophia. For the first time in years, she wasn't constantly stressed about money. One evening, as she was preparing to leave work, Leonardo appeared beside her as she gathered her things. "Would you like a ride home?" he offered. "It's late, and the subway can be dangerous at this hour." Celeste hesitated. She found Leonardo incredibly attractive and kind, but there was something about him that she couldn't quite identify, an edge of danger that both frightened and intrigued her. "That's very kind, but I usually take the subway. I don't want to inconvenience you." "It's no inconvenience," he said, pulling out his phone. "My driver is already outside." Before she could protest further, a sleek black car pulled up to the curb. The driver, a large man in a suit, got out and opened the rear door without a word. During the drive to her apartment in Brooklyn, they talked about her studies, her daughter, and her dreams for the future. Leonardo listened intently, asking thoughtful questions and offering genuine encouragement. "You're going to be an excellent nurse," he told her, as they pulled up to her modest building. "You have a natural instinct to care for others." "How can you tell?" she asked, genuinely curious. "The way you interact with everyone at the restaurant. You see people, really see them. That's a rare gift." As she got out of the car, Celeste felt a warmth spread through her chest. When was the last time someone had truly seen her as more than just a struggling single mother or an overworked waitress? "Thank you, Leonardo, for everything. Get some sleep," he said softly. "And Celeste, if you ever need anything at all, you can call me." He handed her a business card with just his name and a phone number. No company name, no title, just Leonardo Torino in elegant script. That night, as she tucked Sophia into bed, her daughter asked, "Mama, why are you smiling so much?" Celeste touched her face, surprised to realize she was indeed smiling. "I met someone nice today, baby. Someone who was very kind to Mama." "Is he going to be my new daddy?" Sophia asked with 5-year-old directness. Celeste felt her cheeks warm. "It's not like that, sweetheart. He's just a friend." But as she lay in bed that night, she couldn't stop thinking about Leonardo's dark eyes, the way he had knelt down to help her clean up the mess, and the protective tone in his voice when he had defended her. She had no idea that 3 blocks away, Leonardo was lying in his king-sized bed in his penthouse apartment, thinking about the same thing. How natural it had felt to protect her, and how much he wanted to keep her safe from a world she didn't even know existed. A world that included him. The first sign that something was wrong came on a Tuesday evening, when Celeste noticed the same black sedan parked across from Romano's for the 3rd day in a row. She mentioned it to Maria during their break, but the older waitress just shrugged. Rich neighborhood, expensive cars, nothing unusual about that. But Celeste's instincts, honed by years of looking over her shoulder as a single mother in the city, told her something was off. The men in the car weren't customers or tourists. They were watching. Leonardo arrived at his usual time, 8 p.m. sharp, requesting his regular table. But tonight, something was different about his demeanor. He seemed more alert, his eyes scanning the restaurant more frequently than usual. "Is everything all right?" Celeste asked as she served his wine. "Why do you ask?" he replied, though his attention was clearly divided between her and the front windows of the restaurant. "You seem tense." "Different." Leonardo's eyes snapped back to her face, surprised by her perceptiveness. Most people were too intimidated by his presence to notice such subtleties. "Just business concerns," he said, which wasn't entirely a lie. The business in question involved a rival family making moves on his territory, and intelligence suggested they might try to use people close to him as leverage. What he didn't tell her was that his men had reported suspicious surveillance around several locations connected to him, including Romano's. And he definitely didn't tell her that the surveillance had specifically focused on her. As the evening progressed, Leonardo noticed Vincent enter through the kitchen entrance, a predetermined signal that trouble was imminent. His consigliere casually made his way to the bar, ordered a drink, and subtly shook his head twice. The message was clear: immediate danger. Leonardo's blood ran cold when he realized what was happening. The rival family wasn't just gathering intelligence. They were planning to make a move tonight, and they had identified Celeste as his weakness. He was right. At 9:47 p.m., as Celeste was cleaning tables near the front of the restaurant, the black sedan's doors opened. 3 men got out, and Leonardo immediately recognized them as soldiers from the Marconi family, his biggest rivals. They entered Romano's with the casual confidence of men who had nothing to lose. "We're looking for someone," the leader, a man named Tony Marconi, announced loudly. "We hear Leonardo Torino has been spending a lot of time with one of the waitresses here." The restaurant fell silent. Celeste looked around confused, not understanding why Leonardo's presence would be noteworthy to these strangers. Mr. Romano appeared, visibly shaking. "Gentlemen, I think there's been a misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding," Tony interrupted, his eyes scanning the waitstaff until they landed on Celeste. "We just want to have a conversation with the pretty brunette. Nothing violent, just a friendly chat about her boyfriend." Celeste's heart began pounding. She had no idea what they were talking about, but every instinct screamed danger. Leonardo rose from his seat so smoothly it seemed almost casual, but Vincent recognized the predatory grace of a man preparing to kill. "I'm afraid she's busy," Leonardo said, his voice carrying across the restaurant with quiet authority. Tony Marconi turned toward Leonardo with a cold smile. Well, the man himself saved us the trouble of asking questions. That's when Celeste began to understand that this wasn't a random incident. These men knew Leonardo, and somehow she had become involved in whatever conflict existed between them. "Leonardo," she whispered, fear evident in her voice. The sound of his name on her lips, spoken with such trust and confusion, did something to Leonardo that surprised even him. The careful control he maintained over his emotions cracked slightly, revealing a protectiveness so fierce it was almost primal. "Vincent," he said quietly, never taking his eyes off Tony Marconi. "Already handled," Vincent replied, and Celeste noticed that several other men in suits had appeared throughout the restaurant. They had been there all along, she realized, blending in as customers. "You brought a lot of men for a conversation," Tony observed. "You brought weapons into my restaurant," Leonardo replied calmly. "I consider that poor manners." "Your restaurant?" Celeste whispered, pieces starting to fall into place. Leonardo heard her, and for a moment his attention wavered. That moment of distraction was exactly what Tony had been waiting for. "Now!" Tony shouted. What happened next was a blur of motion that would be burned into Celeste's memory forever. Leonardo moved with deadly precision, reaching her in 3 strides and pulling her behind the protection of the bar just as the first gunshot rang out. The crystal chandelier above them exploded, raining glass down on the marble floor. Celeste found herself pressed against Leonardo's chest, his body shielding hers as chaos erupted around them. "Stay down," he commanded, his voice steady despite the gunfire. "Don't move until I tell you." "Leonardo, what's happening? Who are these people?" He looked down at her and she saw something in his eyes that made her breath catch. It wasn't just protectiveness or even affection. It was the look of a man who had just realized he would do anything, destroy anyone, to keep her safe. "I'll explain everything," he promised, pressing a quick, desperate kiss to her forehead. "But right now I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" Despite everything, the gunfire, the danger, the revelation that nothing about Leonardo was what it seemed, Celeste found herself nodding. "I trust you." The gunfight lasted exactly 4 minutes and 37 seconds. When it was over, Tony Marconi and his men were either dead or wishing they were. The restaurant looked like a war zone, but Celeste was unharmed. Leonardo pulled her to her feet, his hands gentle despite the violence that had just occurred. "Are you hurt?" he asked, checking her for injuries. "I'm okay," she managed, though she was clearly in shock. "But Leonardo, I need to know, who are you really?" He looked at her for a long moment, knowing that his answer would change everything between them. "I'm exactly who you think I am," he said finally. "And I'm also someone very different, someone dangerous." "The Mafia," she whispered, the pieces finally falling completely into place. "Yes." And those men came here because of me, because they think we're together. Yes. Celeste closed her eyes, processing everything that had just happened. When she opened them again, Leonardo was watching her with an expression of careful resignation, as if he was already preparing for her to run. Instead, she surprised them both. "Take me home," she said quietly. "We need to talk." Leonardo's penthouse apartment was nothing like what Celeste had expected. While it was undeniably luxurious, it was also surprisingly warm and lived in. Family photos lined the mantelpiece, books were scattered on the coffee table, and soft jazz played from hidden speakers. "This isn't what I pictured," she said, accepting the cup of tea he offered her. "What did you picture?" "Something colder, more intimidating." Leonardo sat across from her, maintaining distance despite wanting nothing more than to hold her and make sure she was truly okay. "Most people in my position lose touch with their humanity," he said quietly. "I've tried very hard not to let that happen." They sat in silence for several minutes, both processing the events of the evening. Finally, Celeste spoke. "How long have you been watching me?" "Since your first day at Romano's." "But not in the way you think," he added quickly, seeing alarm flash in her eyes. "I noticed you because you were different from anyone I'd ever met." "Different how?" "You see goodness in people. You work 3 jobs to take care of your daughter, but you still find time to help your elderly neighbor with her groceries. You study nursing because you want to help heal people. In my world, that kind of genuine kindness is rare." Celeste set down her teacup, her hands trembling slightly. "Your world, the Mafia world, tell me about that." Leonardo hesitated. Once he told her everything, there would be no going back. She would either accept him as he was or run as far and fast as she could. "My family has been involved in certain businesses for 4 generations. I inherited control 3 years ago when my father died. I run legitimate businesses too. Restaurants, construction companies, waste management. But there's another side. Illegal activities. Yes. Violence, when necessary. Murder." Leonardo looked directly into her eyes. "Yes." Celeste absorbed this information, surprised by her own lack of shock. Perhaps she had sensed the danger in him all along. "Why did you help me, really?" "At first I told myself it was just kindness. You were struggling, and I had the means to help. But that wasn't the whole truth." "What was the whole truth?" Leonardo stood and walked to the windows overlooking the city. "The whole truth is that from the moment I saw you, I couldn't stop thinking about you. The way you smiled at customers, even when you were exhausted. The way you studied wine pairings on your breaks because you wanted to do a good job. The way you talked about your daughter with such love and pride." He turned back to face her. "I've never wanted to protect someone the way I want to protect you. And that terrifies me because in my world, caring about someone makes them a target. Like tonight. Like tonight." Celeste stood and walked closer to him, studying his face in the soft light from the city below. "Why are you telling me all of this? You could have just made sure I was safe and then disappeared from my life." "Because I can't disappear from your life," he admitted. "I tried. For weeks I told myself to stay away from you, but I can't. And after tonight, after seeing you in danger because of me, I realized I have to give you a choice." "What choice?" "You can walk away right now. I'll make sure you and Sophia are protected and provided for, but from a distance. You'll never have to see me again and you'll be safe from my world." Or, Leonardo stepped closer, close enough that she could see the vulnerability he was trying to hide behind his controlled exterior. "Or you can stay. With me. But if you choose that, you need to understand what it means. It means being part of a dangerous world. It means always having protection around you and Sophia. It means that some people will try to use you to get to me." "And what would I get in return?" she asked softly. "Everything I have," he said simply. "My protection, my devotion, my love. A life where you never have to worry about money or safety again. A chance for Sophia to have every opportunity in the world." "Your love?" Leonardo reached up and gently touched her face. "I know it's too soon to say this, and I know the circumstances are impossible. But yes, I love you, Celeste. I love your strength, your kindness, your determination. I love the way you make me want to be a better man." Celeste felt tears prick her eyes. "Leonardo, before you decide," he continued, "there's something else you need to know. If you choose to be with me, it can't be temporary. Once you're part of this world, once my enemies know how much you mean to me, leaving becomes almost impossible. You would essentially be choosing a life with me." "That sounds like a threat." "It's not a threat. It's a reality. I would never force you to stay, but I also won't lie to you about the consequences." Celeste turned away from him, walking back toward the windows. Below, the city sprawled endlessly, millions of people living ordinary lives, unaware of the dangerous world that existed in the shadows. She thought about Sophia, about the life she wanted to give her daughter. She thought about her dreams of becoming a nurse, helping people, making a difference in the world. But she also thought about how she felt when Leonardo looked at her like she was precious, how safe she felt in his presence, how he had knelt down to help her clean up broken plates without caring what anyone thought. "There's something I need to tell you too," she said finally. "What?" She turned back to face him, her decision made. "When those men came into the restaurant tonight, when they were looking for me, I wasn't just scared for myself." "What do you mean?" "I was terrified that something would happen to you. In that moment, I realized that somewhere along the way, I had fallen in love with you too." Leonardo's carefully maintained composure cracked completely. "Celeste, I choose you," she said firmly. "I choose us, whatever that means." He crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled her into his arms, holding her like she was the most precious thing in the world. "Are you sure?" he whispered against her hair. "Once I know you're mine, I'll never let anything hurt you." "Never." "I'm sure," she replied, tilting her face up to look at him. "But I have conditions." "Name them." "Sophia comes first, always. If being with you puts her in danger, I need your word that you'll prioritize her safety over everything else, including your feelings for me." "You have it. And I still want to finish nursing school. I still want to help people. I'll make sure you have every opportunity to do that. And Leonardo, I need you to promise me that you'll try to find ways to build legitimate businesses, to move away from the dangerous side of what you do." Leonardo paused. It was a big ask, one that would fundamentally change the trajectory of his family's empire. But looking at Celeste, thinking about the life they could build together, he knew he would promise her anything. "I promise." This time, when he kissed her, it wasn't desperate or protective. It was a promise, a commitment, and the beginning of something neither of them had ever thought possible. Love in the shadows of a dangerous world. 3 months later, Celeste's life had transformed in ways she never could have imagined. She was still working at Romano's, but now as the head sommelier, a position Leonardo had created specifically for her after seeing her natural talent with wine. She was also continuing her nursing studies, though now without the crushing financial pressure that had once defined her existence. The most challenging adjustment had been introducing Sophia to Leonardo. Celeste had been nervous about how her independent 5-year-old would react to a new man in their lives, especially one who came with bodyguards and luxury cars, but Leonardo had surprised them both. With Sophia, he was patient and gentle, never trying to replace her father, but simply being present and kind. He helped with homework, attended her dance recitals, and somehow never made his extraordinary wealth feel overwhelming or intimidating. "Mama," Sophia said one evening as Celeste tucked her into her new bedroom in Leonardo's penthouse, "is Leo going to stay forever?" "Would you like him to?" Celeste asked carefully. "Yes," Sophia replied without hesitation. "He makes you smile the way you used to before Daddy left." The observation brought tears to Celeste's eyes. She hadn't realized how much her stress and sadness had affected her daughter over the past few years. Meanwhile, Leonardo was navigating his own transformation. True to his promise, he had begun the complicated process of transitioning his family's operations toward legitimate businesses. It was dangerous work. Other families didn't appreciate major players going straight. But he had made a commitment to Celeste, and he intended to keep it. "You've changed," Vincent observed during one of their weekly business meetings. "The men have noticed." "How so?" "You smile more. You're less quick to resort to violence as a solution. Some of the older soldiers are nervous." Leonardo considered this. "Are they questioning my leadership?" "No. If anything, they respect you more. The way you handled the Marconi situation sent a clear message about protecting family, and your efforts to legitimize operations show long-term thinking." "Good. Because this is the direction we're moving. Because of her." "Because of her," Leonardo agreed. "Because I want to build something better." The challenges weren't just external. Celeste struggled with the reality of dating a man whose past included violence and whose present still involved morally gray areas. There were nights when she lay awake wondering if she was making the right choice for herself and Sophia. But then Leonardo would do something like surprise her with dinner cooked by his own hands, or spend hours helping Sophia with a school project, or simply hold her while she studied for her nursing exams, and she remembered why she had chosen this path. One evening, as they were having dinner together in his apartment, Celeste noticed Leonardo seemed unusually quiet. "What's on your mind?" she asked. "I've been thinking about the future," he said. "About us. And I want to ask you something, but I'm afraid of the answer." Celeste set down her fork, giving him her full attention. "Ask me." Leonardo took a deep breath. "I know it's been only a few months. I know this world is still new to you, and you're still adjusting. But I can't imagine my life without you and Sophia in it." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Celeste's breath caught in her throat. "I'm not asking you to marry me tomorrow," he said quickly. "I'm asking if you could see yourself marrying me someday, if you could see us building a real family together." He opened the box, revealing a stunning but elegant ring, beautiful without being ostentatious, clearly expensive, but not intimidatingly so. "Leonardo, before you answer," he continued, "I want you to know that I've been working with federal authorities." Celeste stared at him in shock. "What?" "I've been providing information about illegal activities in exchange for immunity and protection for my legitimate businesses. It's part of my plan to transition completely away from the criminal side of operations. That's incredibly dangerous." "Yes, which is why I needed to tell you before asking you to commit to a future with me. You deserve to know exactly what that future might look like." Celeste looked down at the ring, then back up at Leonardo's face. She could see the vulnerability there, the fear that she might walk away. "Are you doing this for me or for yourself?" "Both," he answered honestly. "I'm doing it because I love you and I want to deserve you. But I'm also doing it because I want to be someone Sophia can be proud to call her stepfather." "You want to adopt Sophia?" "If you'll let me. If she wants me to." At that moment, Sophia herself appeared in the doorway, having apparently been listening to the conversation. "Are you asking Mama to marry you?" she asked with 5-year-old directness. "I am," Leonardo replied seriously, treating her question with the same respect he would give an adult. "Good," Sophia said firmly, "but I want a say in planning the wedding." Both adults laughed, and the tension of the moment dissolved into something warm and hopeful. "Is that a yes?" Leonardo asked Celeste. "That's a yes to someday," she replied, holding out her hand for the ring. "When you've successfully transitioned away from the dangerous parts of your business. When we've had time to build a solid foundation as a family. When I've finished nursing school and know I can contribute equally to our partnership." Leonardo slipped the ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly. "I can wait," he said. "For you, I can wait forever." "You won't have to wait forever," Celeste promised. "Just until we're both ready for forever." As he pulled her into his arms and Sophia joined their hug, Leonardo realized that he had found something he never thought possible in his world, a chance at genuine happiness. And for the first time in his life, he was more interested in building something than destroying it. 2 years later, Dr. Celeste Martinez Torino stood in the pediatric ward of Mount Sinai Hospital, checking on her young patients before heading home. The transition from waitress to registered nurse had been challenging, but with Leonardo's support and her own determination, she had graduated at the top of her class. The Torino family enterprises were now completely legitimate, specializing in construction and waste management, with a reputation for fair dealing and community investment. The transition hadn't been easy. It had required careful negotiation, strategic patience, and more than a few tense moments, but Leonardo had kept his promise. As she walked through the hospital corridors, Celeste smiled, thinking about the evening ahead. Leonardo was cooking dinner again, a skill he had developed with surprising enthusiasm, and Sophia was excited to show them both the painting she had made at her new art class. Their wedding 6 months ago had been small and perfect, held in the garden of Leonardo's estate, with only close family and friends present. Sophia had indeed planned much of it, insisting on pink roses and a chocolate fountain. When Celeste arrived home, she found Leonardo and Sophia building a blanket fort in the living room, both of them laughing as their architectural efforts repeatedly collapsed. "How are my favorite people?" she asked, joining them on the floor. "Perfect now that you're home," Leonardo replied, pulling her into their embrace. Looking at her small, imperfect, wonderful family, Celeste realized that sometimes the most unexpected paths lead to the most beautiful destinations. Her journey from struggling waitress to protected wife of a reformed mafia boss had been anything but ordinary. But as Sophia giggled and Leonardo kissed her forehead, she knew she wouldn't change a single moment of it. Love, she had learned, could indeed conquer everything, even the shadows of a dangerous world. This story of Celeste and Leonardo's transformative love has come to an end. If their journey touched your heart in any way, please show your support with a like and share it with someone who enjoys powerful love stories. More emotional stories are coming soon. Thank you for joining us, and see you next time.